All right, everybody online, welcome to the final week 4 of the leadership class. Everybody in the room, give yourselves a hand for making it out again. We've had some incredible weather, haven't we? I love this. The grass is going to be nice and green. Scott was saying that today. He's like, hey, everything's going to be alive and healthy and green, so that's a good thing. Well, good job making it tonight. We are going to be taking a photo at the end of the class tonight to be able to celebrate everyone who made it through the leadership class. So make sure you can stand in the back and we'll hide you. So I see her going, no. We'll make sure Bobby's in view. We'll be like, all right, we got him. But we do want to celebrate you guys because this is exciting. As you know, it's our first of this kind of leadership class that we've done, and we're going to be doing it again in January. So if anybody asks, they're like, how was that? When are they doing it again? We'll be doing it again. But there's more than that. During my class, I'm going to be plugging some of our other opportunities. We talked about, last week I mentioned the GLS, the Global Leadership Summit, which is coming up on August 5th and 6th. Also, we have ECCU. So our university has more leadership classes that you can do, and I'll get into that a little bit more in my slides. Also, if you notice, I'm not Pastor Marvin. I don't know if anybody from Cocoa Campus picked that up, but I'm filling up for him tonight. Is that he's feeling all right, but he wasn't able to make it tonight. So you guys get me, but I'll try to be exciting and engaging. I did bring a stool, which is kind of a joke. I usually stay on here for about 3 minutes. But I thought I'd rest for now, and then I'll get to jumping around, getting you guys excited. So let's go ahead and pray, and we'll get into it. Father, I thank you for just developing the leadership in us, that we know that all leadership is from you, all authority is from you. Help us to be able to walk in just the fullness of the authority, the leadership, the capacity, the abilities that you've given us to do. We thank you for this important lesson on learning effective versus busy and good execution, and how we can take this and practically apply it to our lives. We've learned these concepts, we've understood the heart behind it, but help us to actually practically execute. In Jesus' name. And everybody said? Amen. Amen. All right, before we get started, I just want to hear from 2 people in the room. Tell me something exciting that has happened this month that you've learned, like from the leadership class. What's something that you've applied, that you heard from week 1, 2, and 3, or something that came out? Yep, I saw a hand.
When chatty patties go on, say let's pray.
Yes, that's a good one. When they're just going and talking and talking and talking, hey, let's pray. This is a good time. That's cool. That's a great one. Everybody take that, write it down. Someone else? Anybody else? Give me a good example. Someone's got to volunteer. Yeah, Rachel.
Good leaders move slowly.
Yes, that's good. Who taught that? It's okay, I like it. Probably Pastor Brian, because he's pretty good about that. I feel like that's a Pastor Brianism. Is like, Pastor Matt's really good about that. I've taught this at ECCU, so I don't know if I shared it with you. I'm gonna get right to you. But almost any time I try to get a big answer from Pastor Matt, he is very quick to say, hey, let's pray about that. I'll get back to you. He is very, very slow to be like, yeah, let's do that. Let's move. Let's do it. He's like, let's talk as a group. Let's get some other wisdom in here. Let's pray. We'll get back to you. And that's so good. Charlotte, I saw your hand.
Being intentional about resting.
Yes, that's so good. Who was that? Do you remember?
That's Brian.
Yep. Come on, Pastor Brian. When you go back and watch this video, Pastor Brian, we're giving you lots of love. And so that's really good about taking that time, because you lead well when you're leading yourself well. Is you got to take care of yourself. If you're ragged and, worn out, you're not going to be able to lead other people very good. One more if you got it. Anybody else? Yeah.
Actually, the last class with your goals, I had 3 companies prior to the one I have now.
Yeah.
We didn't do that, and they failed.
Yeah.
Because we took on way more too fast.
Yes.
We were talking about. But on this one, it was different, and we set the goals and did things like that. And
That's awesome.
It was nicer. So it was good to actually see it on the video.
Cool. She got a little plug for my class last week. Nice. I'll pay you later. Sounds good. Awesome. So there's quite a bit to get through tonight. This is exciting. That's another class. Let's go this way. Is that these are Pastor Marvin's notes. You'll notice there's a little bit more details. And so we're going to get through it. It's good. We're going to do 45 minutes here. We'll stop at 7:45, maybe 7:50. And then we're going to do just a brief class for the next section, 25, 30 minutes at the most, and then we'll take our group photo and we'll celebrate and we'll be done. So let's get into it. This idea of effective versus busy is that there's a simple tool that you'll see on the next page, the Eisenhower matrix, which is going to help you, we'll get into it in a second, is to be able to determine what should we really be working on? Does this thing even deserve my time? How do we go into it? And then looking at this idea of meeting, agenda, and assessment is that you really want to go in with a clear plan. Is whatever it is, if you're running a dream team meal Sunday morning, if you're at the office on Monday, even if you're with your family. When I try to sit my kids down, I just did this last night. I got 17, 14, and 11-year-old, and we said we're going to have a little family meeting. And we tried to do an experiment where we got into we watched this cool spiritual video and we wanted to talk about it. But if I don't lay out a clear agenda and be like, hey, this is 15 minutes and I'm expecting this and then we're done, then they're just lost. But if I clearly lay out what's going to happen, then they stay on track. So this can apply to every aspect of your life. And then we look at this accountability. That which is measured or reviewed gets done. We talked about that last week, is it's not what you expect, but it's what you inspect. And then the who, what, by, and when the results. And then this term, you're going to see it a lot. Anybody guess what it is? MBWA. We use this term a lot. I did not know, but I've heard the term before. It's management by walking around. And so we'll use that a lot. So let's look at this tool. As you'll see it on the screen, as you see this quadrant, it's a simple tool to just help you when you're looking at tasks and items, is how do we want to break these items out? Is that you have quadrant 1, which is the urgent and important, hey, I got to do this thing. Like, we use the term at East Coast, it's imperative. This must be done. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but it is important, and I need a plan to actually do this thing. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. I can delegate this and I can give this away. This is something I can give to somebody else, but I still need to own it. And that's a big thing. Let me break off here, y'all standing now. Is that even if you delegate, even when you empower, I love those words, you still have to have ownership. Delegation is not just dumping off. Anybody say amen? Is that's a misconception, is hey, I'm just going to delegate and give all these things away and now it's not my responsibility. No, leaders lead. Leaders need to still own it. So even if I have a ton of people doing these tasks for me and they're actually executing the items and going and doing the physical stuff, I still need to have the ownership. And you'll do the same way. So that's the idea of quadrant 3. And then this is an important one we have to know and we have to work on, is quadrant 4. It ain't urgent and it is not important. So what do we do with it, guys? We eliminate it. We get rid of it. That's a huge thing. Is I want to challenge everybody, write this down. I want to see your pens moving. Is you need to write down your not to-do list. I learned that from my friend who was a Lean Six Sigma black belt at Lockheed Martin. And we were talking about just how busy we were. And it's like, man, I got all of these notepads filled with tasks. Anybody like that? I got so many of them that like I go back and I want to check them off. But he said, Christian, I want to challenge you with this. Don't fill your Monday or your week or your day with all your to-dos. But you need to be diligent and watch your not to-dos. Especially those things that you know will suck you into a rabbit hole. Things that can just eat your time up. And they can be job-related tasks. They can be things that can even look to be good, but they say that good is the enemy of great. So I'll give you a very practical example. I know this is a black hole for me. Whenever I preach a message, especially if I'm talking to young people, I always want to use some clever video. And so I'll be preparing, and a good message preparation, I need to give it a good couple of hours towards like, here's my concept, here's my Bible verses, here's my story, here's the application. Well, if I get stuck going on YouTube trying to find some clever video, I can use 2 hours looking for videos, and it's like, I can't do that. So like, I've just learned, get in there, find it, and move on. And even though you want to try to find, it's good. Hey, the sermon's good. Another video may be good. But now, I'm not spending the time doing what I really need to do, which is actually mapping out all my thoughts and thinking about how this is going to flow to that. And the most important thing for me with a sermon, and this happens to people often, is how am I going to land this plane at the end? I got these cool videos up front, and they're going to laugh, or they're going to be wowed, or it's going to be neat. But how did I actually finish the task off? And we can do the same thing, is that we get caught up in these things that should be on a not-to-do list that need to be eliminated. and then we don't actually get the thing done. Come on, anybody testify to this? You do not get across the finish line because you did the thing that you wanted to do, and then you look up an hour later, you're like, whoa, that was a waste of my time. So you can use that matrix. It's good to have anything like that. We use one at the church, and Fee's going to help me. The acronym is IPOD, which is imperative, priority. I'm putting you on the spot. We just rolled this out.
Yes, imperative, preferred, optional, and don't.
And don't. There you go. So imperative, preferred, optional, or don't. And it's a very similar thing, but it's like, hey, these imperatives I have to have. This is a must-have. You know, but there's don'ts that you got to avoid. So this is a pretty practical side of things that Marvin wanted to be able to give, because who here has to run meetings in some form? Let me see a show of hands. More importantly, like, who doesn't have to run meetings? Because I'll give you a meeting to run. Come on, come and find me. I'll put you in charge of something. I'm gonna get you. So this really, really helps. Marvin spent 30 years or so out at the Space Center. He was a manager of managers out there, launching rockets, if I say that correctly in the right order. And this is a super important thing for getting time back. So when you're running meetings, these are things you need to always answer. Is who needs it? Who likes them? Or asking this, let me start over. Meetings. Who needs them? Who likes them? How do we manage them? How long should they last? And how do we ensure that we're actually being productive? So unless there's a specific task outlined and moderated, no meeting ought to last more than 1 hour. Everybody say amen. Amen. We purposely try to shoot for 45 minutes as a staff. There's some meetings that are going to be an hour. And if you're doing some big planning session, say we're planning Christmas, that's going to be more than an hour. But maybe we need to break it up and make it 2 1-hour sessions, because know this, your brain can only absorb what your butt can endure. Anybody got that? I'm about to put you through 2 hours. That's why we make you get up and move around. Like, more than an hour, you're checking out. You're doodling, you're on your phone, you're somewhere else. So make sure that you got a clear focus. So you need to have an agenda. And what you can do to set yourself for success, this helps so much, is you can email out or give them a copy of that agenda in advance so they know what they're walking into. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to be more prepared. If I call Fee and I say, Fee, I want to get together and brainstorm what our Christmas service is going to be like, guess what? She's going to come with some ideas for Christmas service. But if I just say, everybody, meet me in the conference room in 10 minutes, it's like, oh my gosh, what, am I going to get fired? What are we meeting about? What is this? You walk in, you didn't even bring a notepad and a pen because you didn't know what it was. But when you allow people to be prepared and they have the best opportunity, it's going to have a much more productive meeting. So clearly define what you want to accomplish before you start the meeting. That is so important. So start it at the top. I love using Outlook. Anybody here big on using Outlook and like calendars? Is I live by it because we're so busy. I can't just wing my meetings. I got to have it. So I like to put it in the body. I put it in the subject, and I like to put a body. And it's in there, and it has the agenda. It says, during this meeting, we are going to talk about this, 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 and this. And what it does is it keeps you from going off on crazy rabbit trails. Is when someone in that meeting, and everybody knows that someone, sometimes I'm that someone, wants to go off left field. We're talking about Christmas planning, which, by the way, we get to start planning Christmas like this week.
It's already going.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's what we got to start early. She's like, we're not doing that. You start early. But when I'm in there and I'm like, hey guys, I got a really great idea for an Easter egg hunt for next year. They're like, hey, hold on. That's a good idea, Pastor Christian. But we're going to put that in a parking lot over here. And we can save that. And we can meet on that in October. Because that's going to be enough time to plan for an Easter event. Let's not get sidetracked and distracted and where we're never going to get anything done. We're going to get done with these agenda items, and when we're done, which rarely do you get time back, but maybe you do, we can address some of those things that are just, rabbit trails on the side. So it really, really helps to have someone also who's going to clearly run the meeting. Anybody ever show up to a meeting and you're like, who's in charge? How many of you are like, I guess I'll take charge? I see some of you, I know you're like, oh, I'll run this thing if nobody else is going to because I got stuff to do. I don't really want to sit in here for an hour while we figure it out. So have a clear plan of who's gonna run it. And then this is another thing that we learned. I heard this from Google, Microsoft, and Facebook, because they do this, and I love it. Is if you're not getting clear action items of executable items to do, why are you even there? Like, why are you in the meeting? If there's 12 people in the meeting and only 2 people are walking out with tasks, why were you even there anyways? Couldn't those other people just debrief you later instead of filling a whole conference room or a meeting? Or like, of course, Sunday morning may be different. You do a dream team rally, you're pulling everybody in, your shared vision, that's different. That's where you grab everybody. But really reevaluate your meetings. We've been working on this as a church for the last 2 years. And we don't have it perfect yet, but we've reduced our amount of meetings dramatically. We've reduced our meeting times dramatically. We've brought more focus. And it's like, if you're there, you better have a reason to be there, that you're actually doing something. And then you don't need to bring your 3 people who work for you to the meeting. Just tell them later. And then they can go run and do stuff. It's like the Bible scripture we looked at last week. Write the vision, make it plain so that those who read it can run with it. So you take it and then you give it to other people. So that's a good idea on meeting on how to do it. There's an acronym here on PEAT. So PEAT is purpose, develop a common understanding for the host team functionality, the first 10 minutes, i.e. the real message visitors. This is just like, what is the example we're doing? Then the expectation, hey, we want to improve our connection with visitors, the appearance, proactive participation, and then who's going to attend this meeting? Our host team, our hospitality, our greeters, our usher dream team. And how long is this going to last? 30 minutes. So it's like, boom, cool, I know who needs to be there, I know what our purpose is, I know what we're going after, the expectation, and I know that when we're at 40 minutes, we should have been wrapping it up, but we can start looking that way and moving it. So it makes such a difference when you have this kind of focus for your meetings when you go after it. Also, I love this idea, it's a footnote I have, is always under-promise and over-deliver. That is something that I have had to learn, because you can probably tell I got a little bit of a sales background, and I want to just promise everything. It's like, oh, we can get it done by now. We can do it, like, this is a silly example, but if anybody had to watch SpongeBob with your kids, anybody see some SpongeBob in here, is Patrick Star's negotiating with King Triton. He's like, hey, we'll go back and get this scepter. And he's like, I'll give you 5 days. And he's like, we'll do it in 2. It's like, no, Patrick, shut up. It's like, he gave you 5 days. Use those 5 days, you know? There's no need to overpromise. It's better to exceed people's expectations. So set realistic timelines, because the reality is it's probably not just you having to do it. And anywhere that you're making change, it's going to affect a lot of people. When we make changes as a church to a weekend environment, sometimes that's going to affect 7 different groups. And in that groups, it could be 50, 60 people. So you can't just be like, hey, we're going to change the way we do Connect. And we no longer do it this way. We're going to meet before church at 7:30. I'm just making something so stupid. They're like, what? We got band practice and set up and takedown and this and that and that. It's like, you can't just make up crazy things. We got to think about it and think about who it's going to affect. And that goes for any environment that you're in, is under-promise and over-deliver. This is a great tracker. There's lots of ways. You can use Microsoft Project if you're really fancy. Anybody ever use Microsoft Project? It's a nightmare, but it's cool. It's great when I try to load it up. My personality is too ADD for it, but I love seeing a schedule. Like our building program, we have a Microsoft Project, and our project manager from the construction company sends it to me. I'm like, I love this. I just don't want to be the one to program the 300 items that are in here. Because the idea is that you clearly can see, hey, who's assigned? It's Scotty. We've got the start date. Here it is. We've got the due date. And then we've got what percentage is complete. Good job, Scotty. I don't know if that's you. But you got it done. So you can see where things are at, and you can see the progress of whether it's green, red, or yellow. And it just helps keep tabs on things. It makes a big difference versus just trying to keep track of everything either in your head or post-it notes or whatever crazy system that you're using, is you have a real trackable system. So here's this idea of a simple tool. MBWA, managing by walking around, is that leaders pull information from every level. They don't wait for it to bubble up. This is such a great management technique, is that you can take notes, is you pay attention to what's actually happening. Remember to give feedback. And even like a negative response, you can still get good information, but instead of just the idea of, let's pick on Michael Scott from The Office, or some other manager that we know is like a terrible manager, who just sits in his office waiting for something to happen. Instead, a good manager is actually leaning in, and he's out talking to his team and says, hey, how is this deliverable going? Are we going to get this delivery done? Are we going to manufacture this by this point? How are this building project going? How is this team? Did you get that new person hired yet? I know we've had an open rec for 6 months to get that new person. Are you hiring people? No? What are you doing? Did you post it out on Indeed? Do you have different things that are pulling it in? Did you talk to, the job development group? What are you doing? You're pulling. You're not just sitting back being like, hey, everything's working great. Nobody's knocking my door down today. Like, that is bad management. You're pulling constantly versus just waiting for things to pop up on the surface. So you're asking these questions. What would make your job easier? Is that scary to ask sometimes? Like, you're kind of like, you need to know what that is. And guess what? You can't always give it to everybody. They're like, it'd be easier if I made $15 an hour more. It's like, well, that'd be great. I'm glad to hear that. Noted. But you get to ask these questions, and sometimes it's something so simple. It's like, you know what? I've been having a lot of problems with the connectivity on my computer, and I noticed that our wireless is having problems. If we hardwire my connection, I think I can be more productive, because I'm actually going to get the full bandwidth in our office versus this spotty Wi-Fi connection. It's like, oh, we can do that. We either get our own internal team to go fix it, or we hire someone for $100. We just increase that person's productivity. Or whatever it is. They're like, it would work really well for me if I was able to do 4 10s and work my work week like that, because I've got these things going on, and I find that I work better if I'm already here and I just put in 2 more hours and I just do a longer work day. Something to consider. Like, a lot of companies have embraced strategies like that. So be willing to hear what people have to say and take that. Leaders who are responsible for managing the work assignments see firsthand how things are getting done. Is you need to really know first how people are doing the job. You can't be oblivious to the task that's getting done, because people will see that, especially in our day and age. Like, if you're not aware of this yet, just know that like 18 to 25-year-olds are some of the fastest at sniffing out phonies. Like, they can see it because of just the world they live in with online and everything. Is they can tell something that's fake or disingenuous so fast, because they're already kind of skeptical that it is. And so if you're trying to manage and you have no idea what you're doing at the task too, take the time to know what it is so you can speak knowledgeably. Like, that's a big part of it, is know it so that way you can show it and then inspect it. Also, connect with the entire team, not just with your first immediate work group. Like, take the time to get to know everybody. And I'm going to be honest, that's not always my nature. Sometimes I'm just busy and I'm just working on what I'm doing. Like, I'm thinking, I got all these tasks. I don't necessarily go in, like, for me, just practical example, the Viera Associate Campus Pastor. So I'm interacting with Viera every day, all the time. But I may not always take the time to work with Cocoa Campus as much with Veronica. I'll try to say hi and be friendly and see what I can do, but I'm not interacting on a regular basis, or with other groups. And when I worked in corporate environments, I worked at the Space Center for years. I worked for a defense contractor. It was a $1.2 billion company. And it can be easy just to be siloed just in your area, in your department. But when you have a common relationship, it's so much easier when you need something that they'll actually step out and help you. When I didn't have to only go to the accounting team for, like, when something's on fire, if I had a relationship and then I needed a report or I needed something, they were way more inclined to give it to me because I knew their name. I maybe knew their kid's name and I knew some of their story, and they're like, oh, I'll do this for you. And they're like, how do you always get a report the same day? I was like, because I'm not a jerk. Like, I kind of care about people, and that pays dividends versus just seeing people as a gear or a tool, or like they're just a means of you getting your task done. I know you guys want to do that, but it's a good reminder. So you can also, with this open communication, is that it's going to improve the mutual accountability that you have, is that when you open up the opportunity for people to share feedback, it's going to be able to help them feel like they're owners. And so I'll ask this question for people who work with me. Hey, what can I do to lead you better? And what can I do what's feedback on things that I do that challenges you? Like, I want to know that. If there's tactics that I do in my management style, or if there's ways that I run meetings, or, a lot of times my team would tell me, and I hope it's better now, but I'm still working on it, is they're like, you have a lot of information up here, but I don't feel like I know it sometimes until almost too late. Like, the better you do at briefing me on the front side, because this is important to know, knowledge and information is currency. When you can empower people, if they know like almost the inside track, they're like empowered. They're like, ooh, we knew about that program before anybody else. It's like, you talk to your team like, hey guys, let's huddle around. Like, you get done and maybe you're in like a middle management position, and you get out of your meeting and you just found out about this exciting new program you're gonna roll out. And you go talk to your team, and now they're like, oh, we know what's coming. And they're not finding out about it like at the last minute or when everybody else does. That's valuable. That's currency. That's ways that you create trust and that you can just improve the relationship a lot. So this idea of managing by wandering around, by walking around, is that it allows you to keep your finger on the pulse. Is that you're going to really be able to stay connected with your organization way better because you're in people's lives. You're not just reacting later on. More simple tools is that you're going to show interest. You're going to do active listening. Body language is so important. This is the worst example, is that you stop by to ask someone how they're doing, and the whole time you're doing this. I just had a crisis text on my phone, and I just looked up for a second. I was like, don't look at that. I said, I'll look at that on break. So, you're trying to talk to somebody and they haven't made eye contact with you. And we've all experienced it. Come on, give me a show of hands. You talk to someone and they haven't even stopped typing. It is so bad. It was even worse with the BlackBerry. Remember when the CrackBerry came out? And people were like, I'm important because I'm sending emails while I talk to you. And I'm validated by this. Like, they were just so cool because it's type. And it is terrible. It's like, no, make eye contact. Put the phone away. And the watch is the same thing. I lost my Apple Watch, so it doesn't happen as much, but my Garmin still beeps at me, and I turned off almost all notifications. I don't want to know that stuff, because it's the same thing. You're in a communication, and you're engaged, and I'm talking with Leslie, and my watch is beeping, and I'm just looking at it, swiping. It's like you keep breaking the flow, and it makes people feel undervalued. It's like, oh, you're too busy to talk to me, and these other things are more important. It's like, let those devices work for you. We don't work for the devices, come on. Like, don't let them take over your lives. I set it up because I was so overwhelmed by my phone, is that I have very little push notifications. I get emails from 3 people that push to me only. I don't let every email get to me. So my wife, Pastor Matt, and Pastor Jessica, you just star them. So you go into if you're on Apple, you make it a star favorite, and those are the only emails that push through that actually see. Otherwise, I'll get to email when I get to it. Email doesn't run my life. I'm in charge of email. It doesn't get to dictate like 11 o'clock or 2 a.m. or every moment in the middle of a day that I just got to respond to this stuff. It's like, no, that doesn't need to be the way it is. Same with all those other apps that will go off and just distract. So get that stuff in line. That's free, but your life will be so much improved, and your anxiety will get reduced when you turn off those notifications. Active listening, the body language, just showing impatience. You guys know what it's like. Like, if someone's there and they just have like the tapping foot, and I'm an antsy person, so I kind of have ants in my pants, but I try to be really intentional when I'm talking to someone, especially if I know I need to focus, is I just look right in their eyes. And it's intimidating sometimes if I just stare right into someone's eyes, but it's like, I want you to know I'm here. And I try to put my phone away. And the worst, I already shared this probably on week 1. Maybe it was the ECCU class I taught last month. But on a Sunday, guys, don't be looking at all the stuff around you. If I've already said this, it's a freebie to hear it again. Is many of us are managing things, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are they doing with that? Oh, that's gonna break, or what's going on? Just like, take the time to just look right into that person and make them feel valued. Because stuff can get dealt with later. It's okay. But people are really way more important. So watch your body language. Feedback during and after. So the active listening is important too. Is that some people like this. If I active listen too much, it can irritate people, but I'll try to repeat back like, hey, I hear what you're saying. We need to work on getting that report in by Thursday because Pastor Matt needs it first thing on Monday morning. And so I'll be repeating back what they're saying. Some people like it, some people don't, but it shows that you're paying attention. And this is so critical, is take the time to write the notes down. Like, don't try to remember it in your brain, because none of our brains are that good. I will often write notes in my phone because it's digital and it's convenient. I can take it from a note into an email or a text or a calendar, but I don't want to get distracted because what just happened, I tried to use my phone as an example, and there's some like crisis text in there. The next thing you know, I'm trying to work, I see a text, and then I get off on a rabbit trail, and I'm like, what was I doing? But if I've got a notepad, I just can write it down, and I can deal with it later. And so as a staff, Pastor Matt has asked us, hey, no phones in meetings. If you need to write something digitally, bring a laptop, but don't be sneaky on your Mac and be texting the whole time anyways, because we know about that. Like, be really working, be present and engaged so you can contribute and you're not just there to keep a seat warm. All right, the 4 R's of effective communication is this idea of relay. It's two-way talk. Is that it's not just one person in a monologue saying what it's going to be. It's a conversation where you're valuing people and you're getting their communication back. Next is relate. Not just when it's a problem. So you're actually connecting with them and finding out. Receive, listen for perspective, and then respond. Follow up, positive recognition for speaking up. And so those are important for good listening. And here's a cool quote from Dave Ramsey. Bosses push, leaders pull. Real leadership is servant leadership. And that's so important. Now let's look at some problem solving. So it's important when you have a problem, we all have them. So I learned this from a guy who was a colonel in the Marines, I believe, in my old job, is that he said, every day I have to deal with 3 things: people, projects, and problems. Like, everything I do is people, projects, and problems. It all is entailed in that. So what do we do to work through these things? Is identify the problem. So a good example is, hey, this thing was the wrong size, or it was late. Let's actually identify what it is. Next, let's determine the cause of the problem. When did it start, and what happened? Like, let's get to the bottom so we can actually find a good resolution. 3, devise a possible solution. Let's brainstorm alternatives of how we can get to a better way of doing this. Determine the best solution. And then 5, does the solution fix the actual root cause? Is it not just a Band-Aid, but does it actually get to the root problem? Implement and verify the solution, and then double check to ensure that the root cause is fixed. And we have an example here. So an application of the 5 whys. The Washington Monument is disintegrating. So you ask the question, hey, why is it disintegrating? Well, it's because they're using super harsh chemicals to clean it. Why does the cleaner need to be so harsh? To clean all the pigeon poop off. Okay? Well, why are there so many pigeons? Pigeons eat spiders, and there are lots of spiders on the monument. All right? Well, why are there so many spiders? Spiders eat gnats that are there, and there's lots of gnats on the monument. Well, why are there so many gnats? Gnats are attracted to the light at dusk. So what's the solution? Turn the lights at a later time. Now the Washington Monument's not going to disintegrate. Like you just keep peeling it back and peeling it back and peeling it back till you get to actually the root problem. And then you don't have to re-engineer the whole thing. You just look at it from a different angle. I'm sure there's some problem that you're facing in your life that if you start peeling it back, you're like, oh, that's a much better solution. I don't have to go about it this way. So I'm going to jump into a bit of a plug here for ECCU and more opportunities for you guys to grow in your leadership. So this leadership class that we've done has been free to everyone. But if you are interested in getting credit for it, you can do that. Talk to Casey later, and she can be able to help you. Yeah, yep, Casey right here. If you don't know her, you should. She's awesome, amazing. Everybody give Casey a hand. And so we have other classes that you can audit and go through, or you can do it as a regular student. So I'm just going to read the notes that Marvin wrote here. Leadership is a free audit. Once the first program, class, Christian Identity, or similar is purchased, the student version of Leadership is open to complete the quizzes for credit. Leadership is scholarshiped for ECC's members and friends. So I believe what he's saying is that if you enroll in one of the classes, we have classes starting next week, Christian Identity, there's a few other classes, that you can be able to get credit for this as a college class. Is that correct?
Yes, it unlocks the student version for free, so you would still take the free quizzes that go with this class, but you wouldn't have to pay to switch this from audit to credit. It would be scholarship based on you enrolling in a different course.
That's cool. That's great. Everybody got that? That's really neat. And it's a great class. I recommend that everybody do it. Is that you have some examples here on the screen, and I think everybody got a couple of the class schedules. Did everybody get this when you walk in? So there's two different ones. Did they get both, Casey, or just one? There's the green and the yellow.
One based on interest, I was saying.
Okay, cool. Gotcha, yeah, so there's the core track and then there's the Christian ministry certificate. So this is great, is Pastor Marvin and I both super believe, and the whole staff do, is that everybody should go through the core class. I know, who in here has been through core? I know there's a bunch of people here that are students that have been through and gone further, done your AA or worked on your BA or master's and even further. So it's incredible. There's so much material that you'll get in that 1 year. I highly recommend it. For more information, of course, see Casey for that. Let's see what else we got. Associates in Christian Ministry is that you've got the additional foundations of worship, hearing the voice of God, Stewardship 101, Covenant Authority, Live and Walk by Faith, Church History, and Church Management. So to receive a true AA in Christian Ministry, the following classes may be added to the CMC. These are all core classes and are required for either your AA in Christian Ministry or theology. And classroom sessions begin next Thursday at this same time and location. So if anybody's interested in that, of course, see Casey. We even have a thing to where I think you get 50% off of your first class if you get someone else to sign up with you.
If it's your first credit class period, then it's 50% off. If you were a referral to somebody else, so if a current student gave you a referral, then the student who referred you will also receive 50% off when the new student starts.
Cool. Awesome. So that's what I have for the session 7. Let me ask if there's any questions before we take our break, and then we'll come back for our last session. Anybody got questions on that? Is that practical and helpful? Who in here has to deal with meetings and agendas and stuff for your work on a regular basis? So good. That was a little less ministry, but we deal with the ministry all the time. But from maybe some Dream Teamers perspective, but I hope that could bless you. And if you can get meetings right, man, it changes everything. Like, people want to show up to your meetings because they know that you have purpose and focus, and that you're not going to waste their time, and that you're not just spinning around aimlessly. So let's break, and we will come back at 7:45. We'll be back at 8 o'clock.